class, we're going to look at another piece of writing that one of my students gave me. This is from a guy living in Moscow, and it is a translation. And I think that's important because that means it's a very different piece of work from the writing papers that we were looking at for the CPE. I've had a few students who are taking that exam. And of course, when we look at a writing for that exam, we have to mark it according to the criteria for that exam. And it will be a very different piece of work than something like this, which is a translation. So let's have a look at the translation. So this is quite political. It's certainly about the military. The US withdraws its troops from Afghanistan, leaving behind uncertainty. Afghan heroin is a challenging problem for former Soviet states and Europe. Now, I didn't like there being a dash here because I think never split up a main clause, a sentence which has meaning all on its own, with that dash. You just have it as one sentence. So at the end of April 2021, the states and its NATO allies started the implementation of the agreement, signed earlier with the Taliban movement, whose main clause is, so this is describing the agreement, the agreement, the peace accord, or the agreement whose main clause, whose main stipulation is the withdrawal of all foreign troops from Afghanistan. Now, I want to point out straight away that yes, we do use whose to refer to things. Now, I checked this because I wasn't really sure the first time I found out that we use whose for things. I decided to check a few sources, and yes, it is correct. You can say the book whose, the house whose, and in fact, you must if you want to use the possessive pronoun, and whose is the possessive pronoun, and we do mean the main clause of the agreement. So we need the possessive form, the agreement whose main clause is the withdrawal of all foreign troops from Afghanistan. And it's important to note here that we need to say the states because we mean the United States, and so we really need a the there. We do the same with all of the unions, actually, when you think about it. The Soviet Union, the European Union, the United States, the United Kingdom. Notice they all have a the there, and it's because they're a collection of states or countries, and you need this article when you're dealing with collections of states or countries. Okay, so let's keep going. Some political, but in fact, the timeline of this withdrawal designated in the agreement has been shifted from May to September 2021. Now, notice that I've put in some articles here. The timeline, the noun of noun, guys. Notice how many times I say this, the noun of noun, because very often when you say noun of noun, you are being really specific. What kind of timeline? The timeline of this withdrawal. What kind of withdrawal? The withdrawal of all foreign troops. So not a withdrawal, but the withdrawal of all foreign troops from Afghanistan. And in fact, I would even say here, I would argue that this word main, it demands, this adjective demands the definite article. I can't think of a way you can say a main unless there are many main things. And okay, maybe in that situation, but most of the time the adjective main, it demands the definite article. And here we are saying the withdrawal of all foreign troops is the main clause, or the main clause is the withdrawal of all foreign troops. So we really need a definite article there. I hope that's clear. But notice this noun of noun pattern. The only time when you say a noun of noun is with quantifiers or quantifying expressions, and increase in, I must admit that's not of, but it's similar still, but a lot of, a few of, a number of, a great deal of, a large number of. Okay, then you have an but they're all quantifiers. Most of the time you'll see the noun of noun. Okay, so let's keep going. Some political analysts have been quick to say that, and by the way, as a person who teaches punctuation very often, I wouldn't like that colon right there, although I must admit, you might see it sometimes. So a colon must have a main clause on one of the two sides. So I must admit, what you've got in the direct speech is a colon. In fact, the colon's fine, I've decided, just because it's being used to introduce direct speech, and the direct speech has got at least one main clause in there. So that is fine. Sorry, it's not a mistake at all, and that's perhaps why I didn't correct it. But be aware that usually with colons, you normally see a main clause before you get to the colon. With direct speech, you can have it after the colon, I agree, and you're using the colon then instead of a comma. So let's keep going anyway. A withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan highlights only one thing, and yet you could use a dash or a colon here, it's up to you. Washington's military defeat in this country. Okay, so that's what it highlights. Americans have achieved nothing. Yeah, not have reached nothing. It's got to be have achieved nothing. If you're talking about achievements, please use the word achieve. Reach is much more physical. Yeah, you reach your goals. I suppose you can reach non-physical things like goals, but you can achieve them as well. But you reach a destination. Yeah, so you might say yeah, you reach a place when you're traveling there usually, or you reach something when you put your hand up high and you try to reach something on the top of the chest of drawers or something. And so reach is very physical and not so metaphorical. And it's not normally used for, well, you certainly don't say Americans have reached nothing. No, we would have to say achieved nothing if we want to say they've failed. Okay, it goes without saying that after their leave, a new civil war between the Talibs and pro-American government settled in Kabul will immediately ignite, okay, but break out, I think, is better. And it's because usually you ignite something, will immediately ignite. Yeah, you don't normally say a new civil war will immediately ignite. You normally say the Americans leaving will, the departure of the Americans will ignite a civil war. You do it like that, will spark off a civil war. So yeah, I've put it here. Their exit from the country will ignite or will spark off a new civil war. But you could use the phrasal verb break out. It sounds great, in fact. A new civil war between the Talibs and pro-American government will immediately break out. I hope that's clear. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So we definitely cannot exclude. Now, I've spoken about this before. Yeah, probably, definitely. These guys go before the main verb, but they don't go before the subject. They go before the main verb. We definitely can't. When the modal verb is negative, definitely goes before it, and probably. When the modal verb is positive, definitely goes between the two main verbs. So we can definitely exclude, but we definitely can't exclude. We can probably exclude. We probably can't exclude. So I hope that's clear with these adverbs, because they are tricky and they do seem to cause a few problems for my students anyway. Okay, let's keep going a little bit further. There is a high probability. Yeah, a high probability. Notice when you're dealing with quantifiers and probabilities, this is often when you use a large number of, an increase, a probability. It's not very clear, it's not very definite, but there is a high probability. We don't know what exact probability, but there is a high probability that, I suppose you don't need that, but I think it makes it clearer, but you can take it out. There is a high probability large-scale fights will resume. Yes, you don't need this, that. I should brackets around that one. It's up to you. It's up to the writer whether they want it or not. Large-scale fights will resume between the Talibs and the government forces, but it is not worth over-dramatising the situation. And, of course, it is too early to depreciate the US, yes, got to be the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and its allies' military efforts in Afghanistan. Good apostrophe, no apostrophe here, all good. We should recall the aim of American intervention in Afghanistan, if its intervention is in a country. It is commonly known that after the deadliest terrorist attack, I think we'd often just say terror attack, terror attack. Terrorist attack? No, it's okay. Terrorist attack is okay, sorry. The deadliest terrorist attack of September 11th, 2001, Washington accused Osama bin Laden probably need capitals for L and B, but I'm not sure. The leader of the Al-Qaeda organization, notice that's a nice A positive that he's using, and it sounds good. Yeah, accused Osama bin Laden, the leader of the Al-Qaeda organization, of being the mastermind behind this attack. We would definitely use that preposition here, the man behind the attack. Yeah, the mastermind behind this attack. Yeah, the bogeyman that is kind of, made into a, I don't know, some kind of caricature of evil that we can blame all our problems on. So the mastermind behind this attack, and declared war on him. Okay, at that time, the Talibs were in power in Kabul and closely cooperated with Al-Qaeda, which used the territory of Afghanistan as its support base. The administration of the US insisted on extradition of Al-Qaeda terrorists by the Taliban government, and after its strenuous refusal, made up its mind to launch a military operation. Now, what do you think was my problem with this it's? Because we've looked at this a few times now, and I hope you all remember that I want you to be very careful with pronouns. Yeah, you've got to be careful with pronouns. And what I want you to do is make sure that if you use the same pronoun twice, it must refer to the same noun. So what I don't like here is that this first it's, after its strenuous refusal, this is the refusal of the Taliban. And after its strenuous refusal, let me just check. Yeah, so this is referring to the Taliban. This is it. It gets really confusing if you do this with pronouns. This it's is referring to the Taliban, and this it's is referring to the administration of the USA. And that, when you do that in the same sense with it's and it's really confusing. You just don't know which it's refers to who. So let's change it. After its strenuous refusal, that's the Taliban, decided to launch a military operation. That's fine, because that's the administration of the USA decided to launch a military operation, which would go by the name Enduring Freedom. At the first stage, the US Air Force performed massive airstrikes on the Talib's military objects, then in cooperation with the opposition, the Northern Alliance, ousted them from the capital of Kabul and flushed them out of most of the whole country, or flushed them out of the country. Yeah. We normally talk about flushing something out, and it's probably from the toilet here, because you flush the toilet. But here we would definitely use flush somebody out of a difficult place where they are embedded, or where they are heavily armored and barricaded. You'd need to flush them out. And so certainly that's it's better than cleaned them off. I know what the student means. I think he wants to say they finished them off. And we certainly use that one, finished them off, by bombing them, I suppose, but by flushing them out of the country. Al-Qaeda fighters, including some leaders of the Taliban, who found shelter in the less accessible caves of the Tora Bora Mountains, either were partially killed. I've put a few question marks here. Tell me, how can you be partially killed? Has anybody been partially killed before? It just sounds a little bit like a little bit dead. Yeah. And that doesn't sound good to me. Partially killed? No, I don't think that we can have that. And so I'm not sure what the student meant here. Either we're partially killed. I mean, I suppose, I'm not sure. Anyway, you can't be partially dead, or were forced to flee the territory of neighboring Pakistan, or flee to the territory of neighboring Pakistan. The combined military operation of the US and NATO in Afghanistan was accepted by a resolution of the UN Security Council. All very good. As you can see, most of this is really good. For the past 20 years, there have been significant changes both in the Taliban movement itself and in the foreign policy of the United States towards Afghanistan. The noun of noun. I talk about it a lot. Yeah. And of course, we always say the first stage, guys. Adjectives like main and first, they demand the word the. They really do, because there's only one stage, the first stage, and definitely the US Air Force as well. Okay, the Taliban was established in the mid-90s and as an Islamic military political group, uniting the Pashtun tribes and standing up to the central government of Kabul, the noun of noun. The main base for this movement was the Pakistan border areas. That's really specific, where a lot of Afghan refugee camps have been accumulating. Probably best to have a comma there for the non-defining relative clause. With a total number of 3 to 5 million people, have been accumulating since the time of the Soviet troops' presence. So that probably needs an apostrophe there. The presence of the Soviet troops. According to Afghan officials, there were 17,000 elementary religious schools, madrasa, whose graduates, not which, whose graduates have formed a backbone of the Taliban movement. And if in their early days, because you've got it as a plural, I want their early days. If you say Taliban, I'll accept it. The Talibs have been closely cooperating with Al-Qaeda and other radical Islamic groups. Later, they started to shun them. This was down to several reasons. This comes down to several reasons, but you could say be down to as well. So this is a good phrasal verb, to come to be down to. This means to be the reason for something. So if you say something like the hyperinflation that society will soon undergo comes down to the idiotic politics of the past year, you're saying that the reason we are going to have inflationary prices very, very soon is because some people decided that we must be forced not to work for a whole year. And that's why we're going to get inflation, and because of all of the money printing, of course. So this comes down to is when you're assigning reasons and causes, and it's much better than caused by here. This was down to, this was because of, down to here means because of, this was because of several reasons. This comes down to several reasons, such as the noun of noun, the death of Osama bin Laden, the noun of noun, and the Taliban's several high-ranking figures. The change of generations, the noun of noun. The strategy of the Talibs' leadership, the noun of noun. Even the term moderate Talibs emerged at this time. Both Washington and Moscow, despite recognizing the Taliban movement as a terrorist organization, one of many, did not refuse holding talks. Oh, I missed that, sorry. Did not refuse to hold talks. You refused to do something with its representatives and tried to establish a peaceful dialogue between the Talibs and the central authorities, the central authorities of Afghanistan. So we've got to say to stop the conflict. Having eliminated Osama bin Laden and several odious Taliban leaders, Washington concluded that the main goal of the Enduring Freedom Operation had been achieved. There were no more direct threats to US national security from the territory of Afghanistan. The case is that the Taliban, in contrast to Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State, is purely, or is solely, I recommend here, you mean only, but I don't mind purely, is purely a local Afghan group, if we don't take into account its representative office in Pakistan, and it doesn't have the goal of global domination or plan to attack other countries. I hope that's all clear. So I'm going to just stop this one and carry on straight away with the rest of this essay, but it's just because I like to break these classes up into no more than 20 minutes, and then I put them up on the website. So if you have missed any of the classes that I've been making recently, please go to my website, skype-lessons.com, and you will find all of the classes that I've been making over the last few months, and you'll find all of my new ones that I make over the next few months will be put there. They'll be going on my website. So I'm going to stop this one, and then we're going to carry on in a second. So please stay around if you want to hear the rest of my comments on these